Okay, so hi Supratim.
Hey Swastika, how are you?
I'm good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's evening time. I just finished cooking dinner, and
Oh,
I know it's morning for you, so good morning.
yeah, good morning. Yeah. Um, so let me first introduce you to our viewers. Firstly, hello everyone. I'm Swastika, and here we have Supratim Dey on our podcast today, and he's currently a PhD candidate in planetary science in UC Davis, and he has recently got a NASA Future Investigator Fellowship. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, uh, yeah, how's this COVID times going? How is it there?
Well, COVID times is of course unfortunate, and I know it's not a good time for the world, but
Mhm.
somehow it has actually been a really productive time for myself because I got a lot of time to learn new stuff while sitting at home, and from March to July when I could not go to lab. And I spent a lot of time reading, learning about many other stuff, and thinking about other ideas, which was always in the back burner when I was busy with my research. So and then I also got the NASA fellowship around the end of July. So that was a big thing for me. And that meant that once I get the fellowship, that means that I don't need to teach anymore. Uh, so I was a teaching assistant before that during my PhD. So
Mhm.
that freed up more of my time as well. So I don't need to teach anymore. So I can focus only on my research and any other things that I am thinking about. So it has actually been a more productive time for me than I actually thought about initially.
Oh, that's great. I mean, how did you manage to get this NASA fellowship? Did you
Um,
do something
so
extra?
this is a fellowship which like most students in planetary science would apply for in based in US, and it's a highly selective fellowship. So there's like selection rate is less than 10%.
Oh.
Um, so I applied. So this is my fourth year right now. So I applied in my third year, but that's not the first time I applied. I applied for 3 consecutive years, and I only got selected in my third year, right?
Oh.
So although it seems like when you write on your CV, people always write the accomplishments, but they never mention the failures. So the first two times were failures, which I did not when I did not get this fellowship, and only in my third attempt I got it. So that's how I got it. And the fellowship is designed for PhD students in planetary science who the fellowship is basically supposed to fund their research so that the student can focus on their research project instead of trying to get funding from other sources like teaching or working at other research lab, for example. So, and the fellowship also pays for any kind of conference travel and your research expenses, like you need to buy a new instrument or some
Oh.
reagent or something like that. So that's what the fellowship covers.
That's great. It almost covers everything you need for research, right? That's great.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So jumping onto our podcast. Um, when I saw the list and I saw your name and there was written Cosmochemistry decided, I was like, what is this subject? And this seems so interesting. So what is Cosmochemistry? And like, tell us something about it, the subject.
Right. So cosmochemistry is a one of the parts of planetary science, the broader field of planetary science. So from the name itself, it means the chemistry of the cosmos, for example, and it mostly deals with the formation of the solar system and not the entire cosmos because of the reason being that for doing any research in cosmochemistry, you really need the samples, right? Because it's a chemical analysis of samples. So
Mhm.
we only have samples from within our solar system. We do not have any samples from any other planets or outside our solar system. So right now it's only limited to what samples we have. And most of the samples are either cosmic dust, which is fine dust particles falling on Earth's surface from space, or meteorites, which are rocks from many asteroids, which are in the asteroid belt. They keep colliding among themselves, and sometimes they get knocked out and they fall on Earth at some point of time.
Mhm.
So I study mostly meteorites, although during my undergrad years, I also did some internship projects on cosmic dust as well.
Sure.
The goal of cosmochemistry is to understand how the solar system and the planets formed and evolved billions of years ago and what the process is going on, and then like correlate it with other galaxies that we observe.
Mm. So it's mainly research part, right?
Yes, the entire field of planetary science is mostly like curiosity-driven research. It's not an
Mm.
applied science. It's basic science and exploratory science, trying to understand what happened, how did it happen, why life is on Earth and not anywhere else. So that's the kind of curiosity-based questions that planetary science is trying to answer.
Mm. And where did you hear about this subject? Like, where did you learn about?
So like technically, just the name cosmochemistry I did not hear about until maybe like my second or third year in IIT. So what happened was I always was interested in space, anything related to space since I was a
Mm.
kid. I would collect newspaper clippings of any rocket launches or information about satellites that India or NASA launches, for example, and I would paste them in a small diary I had. Then once I joined Roorkee in my second year summer, I thought that I should try to do a research internship. So during
Mm.
my second year, I was already working on a research lab in my department during the semester, something called micropaleontology. So that's where you look at very small fossils from the uh, sea level, or like not sea level, I would say the sea sediments,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can identify a lot of features on those microfossils and try to understand the paleoclimate, that is a climate on Earth long time back. So that's what I was working on and during the semesters, and I thought that that's the only kind of research I can apply for, because if I'm applying for some internship outside the university, they would look for some research background, right? That's what I was thinking in my head that time. So I only applied for micropaleontology labs across the country where I could show that yeah, I have some research background and I want to do some internship during the summer. So luckily I got selected in something lab called the National Institute of Oceanography, and that's located in Goa, of all places. So that was a great place for me to go for a summer internship. So I went there and I worked in a micropaleontology lab for 2.5 months in Goa, and the work was fine. I would not say that it was like really. I was really excited about it. I was only excited about being in Goa and exploring places around Goa. So once the scientist I was working with once he mentioned that Supratim only came here to visit Goa for free. Anyway, so I was working in the lab, and then one day I was just bored and walking around the entire building. So the building is huge. It's a national lab, and it's a huge building. And I was walking around, and then I saw a door on which it was written Cosmic Dust Laboratory. And I was intrigued, like, what is Cosmic Dust Laboratory doing in National Institute of Oceanography? Like, I had no clue what's going on. So the next day, I tried to talk to a PhD student who worked in that lab, and then I got really interested, and I found out that they actually study cosmic dust from the seafloor sediments, and cosmic dust keeps falling on Earth all the time. There's basically 40,000 tons of cosmic dust falling on Earth every year, so that's a lot. And then I talked to the scientist who runs the lab, and next year I applied to that scientist at National Institute of Oceanography for a research internship. During that period, between the 2 years, I studied a lot about the field, like as much as I could understand from research papers, and got more interested. And that's when I learned about the cosmochemistry world.
That's great. Like, you were motivated throughout the 2 years you learned from research papers. That's great.
Yeah, it was just interesting to me, and then I just kept reading when I had some free time.
Yeah. So, can anybody from any subject shift to cosmochemistry, or do we need
So
something?
the better question would be uh, planetary science, not cosmochemistry, because cosmochemistry is a specific field or part of planetary science. So planetary science as a whole has many other parts like geophysics, planetary impacts, where people do a lot of geophysical calculations and computer modeling of how if two planets are colliding, how much energy is released. what the forms of matter are, because that's so highly energetic and high temperature pressure conditions that the forms of matter changes. For example, ice, like water ice, we know
Mm,
water as water vapor, liquid water, and ice, but there's
mm,
actually like 11 kinds of different ice depending on the pressure temperature conditions. So they have all different kind of crystal structures and different properties. So that's the kind of modeling and simulations that they do. They also have some experiments where people have huge guns where they impact a bullet made of some material with rocks to see how the rocks behave at different
mm,
pressure temperature conditions. And then there's also what did I say? Astrobiology aspect, where people with biology background, they
mm,
work on samples and try to understand if life can exist on other planets or why life exists on Earth, stuff like that. So
mm.
people from various fields can work in planetary science. So there are students who have only chemistry background and they work in cosmochemistry. People from physics background work in the impact or geophysical aspects,
Mhm.
and people from biology background they work on the astrobiology aspect.
So there's vast range of subjects.
Yeah, this is like because this is basic science, so uh, many different fields combine together to answer these questions.
So like I never thought about research. Like people don't think about research. Like when they are kids, they are usually interested in it, and people are very much interested in. Like almost everybody wants to become an astronaut. But
I also wanted to
then
become an astronaut when I was a kid.
yeah, I saw it in your website. Like your website is amazing. It's really
Thanks.
amazing. I loved it,
I
and
actually made
all.
it during my last year at Rookie,
Oh,
and since
oh,
then I've not actually updated much.
yeah. Yeah, so people, but nobody actually take it seriously and follow their dreams. But you did that. Were you ever afraid of not choosing streams like coding? Did it ever bother you?
So to be honest, not really, because first of all, I didn't ever learn coding during my school years. In my
Mm,
school, I did not have like the coding classes or anything. Like there was no course like that, so I was never really introduced to that coding subject. And although it was always like I always was curious, how is it possible that top 400 or 500 rankers in IIT always go to CS, computer science? Like it makes no sense, because it's not possible that only the top 500 people only like computer science and nothing else.
mm,
Uh, but maybe it's because computer science is now at, in the age of information technology, is the most highest paying jobs
mm,
exist in computer science, and a great number of jobs as well. So that makes sense the if your goal is to get a job which pays a lot and also gives you some really good problems to solve, and you're interested in it, then of course it makes sense. But still, like all top 500, most of it still doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, even if I was a top ranker, I would not have chosen computer science. That's for sure. I would have mostly gone with one of my interests was aeronautical engineering, and geology was my other choice. So my rank was not good enough for aeronautical engineering anyway. So I stuck to geology or earth science because I was mostly interested in planetary science. So earth science is the closest one I can get to. And then once I started with geology, then I also never really thought about going into the field of what's it called, the oil exploration,
mm.
where petroleum companies hire a lot of geologists. So I was mostly interested in doing research in the planetary aspect, but I didn't know where to start. So I started with micropaleontology, and just by luck, I found that Cosmic Dust Lab. And I did those two internships there. And after that, also in my third year, I was watching a TV show called, I forgot the name. What was the name again? Outlander. Yeah, which is based in Scotland. And then I really loved the scenery in Scotland, and thought I want to go there. So my fourth year internship, I was looking for places in Scotland where they have some cosmochemistry research, and I found one in University of Glasgow, and I applied there, and that's where I got selected, and I spent my summer in fourth year in Scotland doing research as well as exploring the place, which is beautiful by the way. So yeah, maybe I got distracted from your real question. Why
Yeah.
not coding, right? Yeah, actually, I never learned coding before I joined IIT.
Mm-hmm.
And in my first year, I think it's still the same right now that in the first year or first or second semester, you have to choose between C++ or Java, which course
Yeah.
you want to take. So I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea which one to take because I had no exposure to any of them. And I asked a friend, and a friend said on Java you can use a lot of, you can make a lot of games. And then I thought, oh, that's great. Like I'll learn some Java and make some games. That sounds good. And then I chose Java. And at the first Java class that we had, the professor says, okay, so if you took Java, I assume all of you already know C++. So we're going to start from there. And since then, I never really understood anything in the class at all. Like everything was above my head. I barely even managed to pass the class. And after that, I just hated coding because of that experience. And during my 5 years at Ruby, I never learned it. But later on, after starting my PhD, I thought I would try to learn it from Code Academy or other places. I did a few courses, like started doing a few courses, but always got bored and left it there. So I still don't know much coding.
That's Yeah, that's interesting because many of us, when we find coding the final thing, and then if we ever fail in it, we find it very frustrating, and then that nothing's left, and we don't have anything to go for. So,
But I have heard of those stories from people who code, but I have never had that experience because I never really started coding for like seriously. But I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure if I actually need to use it for something, like for a project where I really need it, then maybe I'll just learn it by myself. But since
Yeah.
I never really needed it for any purpose, I never really had the motivation to learn it myself.
Oh, that's that's interesting. Like, so you just talked about your college life. So how was it? Tell us more about your college life.
I think college life was amazing for me. I was really lucky to have some really great friends. Almost all of them were from my branch itself. And I
Mm-hmm.
also had some from other branches like metallurgy as well, who were near my room in our first year hostel. So one, the two things that I did the most during college life was playing FIFA, which is a computer game of playing football, and going hiking or rafting in Rishikesh. So I went hiking a lot with my friends around Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. So it is good. It is really lucky for us that we are located at such a nice place to go for 3 or 4 day hikes anytime. And so FIFA, interesting story is like when I was in my first year, like my roommate used to play a lot of FIFA, and I was like, who the hell plays such a boring game? Like, how are we playing one person controlling one person in the game where there's 11 players? Like, it looks so boring to me. But then one day they just said, okay, try it a little bit, and then I started trying it, and I really got interested. And since then, I still play FIFA with my housemate here in the US. So that's been a huge part. And one of the best hiking trips I did was the Valley of Flowers trek. I don't know if you've heard of it, uh, but it's really beautiful. It was like a 7 day trip that we did, and we hiked for 3 days to reach the valley, and then almost 2 days to get back. And I remember that we're on the last day we were worried about whether we should do a side hike on the side or should come back because there was one professor who was really strict on attendance, and we didn't want to miss this class. So
Awesome.
we had to make a tough choice that, okay, let's go back instead of missing his class.
We didn't get a chance to have enough trips. Like we lost 1 year of our college life, and
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, we could have gone to many trips by now, but then COVID is here, and I don't think we can make enough trips the next year too because of COVID.
Yeah, that's true. I understand.
That will be
Also,
dangerous.
I
Yeah.
don't know what the situation is for the people who run the rafting agencies in Rishikesh, for example. Like, I don't think they will have any customers right now.
Hmm. And I guess it will be closed these days. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be closed. Yeah,
So we are unlucky in with this.
I know. Uh, so there's always like two sides of the coin. You can try to find
Hmm.
something positive in that too.
Hmm.
Maybe spending more time with your family.
Yeah, spending more time and spending on studying a lot. Like we are getting a lot of assignments from college, and more than what we had in during online classes, offline classes. We are having more right now.
Oh
And
wow, I did not expect that, but maybe they want to keep you busy.
and also there are no friends here. Like I don't have any friend here
That's true. You will
where
be
I
missing the college life experience
yeah
because you're just staying at home.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So moving on to our next question. Are you planning anything else? We you told about UPublish, right? Did I get it right?
Right. That's an idea I'm currently working on. Because of COVID, I thought about it more, but it was in my head for a long time, like the problem at least. So UPublish is my idea of a cloud-based software platform, which would
Mm-hmm.
help academic societies to publish their own journals instead of relying uh, on publishers like Elsevier, Wiley, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem that we're trying to address is the inaccessibility of academic research or academic papers. So, for example, you as a part of IIT Roorkee would have access to many journals because IIT Roorkee subscribes to those journals. But there are also a lot of journals which would not have access to because IIT Roorkee just cannot afford to subscribe to many journals, right? So there is one fun fact that, for example, a university like Harvard,
Mm-hmm.
suppose whatever they have access to, IIT Kanpur has access to only 12% of what Harvard has access to, right? That's because Harvard has a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and even IIT Kanpur doesn't have that much. So no matter how world-class researchers are present in IIT Kanpur, for example, they just do not have access to 88% of the research that Harvard has access to, and that itself is a huge like detriment to the research progress. So that's kind of like social injustice as well, because poorer countries or poorer universities, they would not be able to have as much research progress as other places, as well as it stops the progress of like the pace of progress of science. For example, for COVID-19 research, all the research were made freely accessible by these publishers because they wanted to uh, make the pace of research faster so that we can solve this problem. But that should be the case for any kind of research, not just COVID-19 and during a pandemic, right? So our mission is to make knowledge freely accessible to everyone.
That's nice. And like it's great. Like everyone should get equal opportunities. Like that.
Yeah, that is true. That is the main purpose. So the business idea that I have is just an idea right now. I have nothing else. So I'm trying to make a team and participate in business plan competitions at my university and in California. And then
Mhm.
once I get some feedback from people who are more knowledgeable and other mentors, then I'll see if it is actually a feasible idea or not. But right now, I'm just trying to see where it goes, getting out of my comfort zone.
That's like you're almost covering up everything. You did research and then you're planning coding if you will need to do. And then you're planning on business too. And this is a great initiative.
So the idea is a software platform, but I have no background. I don't even know coding. I can maybe just write hello world or something like that. But other than that, I have no software development or coding background. So the thing to understand is you don't really need, like everyone doesn't need to know coding. Like if you have an idea and you can build a team of people and some of them already have the skills to build the software platform or whatever coding you need, then not everyone has to do the same job, right?
Mhm.
Someone can have the vision to what the product needs to be, and then there will be someone else who actually manages the technical aspect of coding, etc. And then there's like sales, marketing, and financial aspects, etc. So you would need people who have skills in different backgrounds.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. And we should stick to our dreams. Yeah.
It was never
Yeah.
my dream. Like I never thought that I would be in business or anything.
Uh,
I just thought that I would be a scientist. But
mhm.
your dreams can always keep changing.
Yeah. Should keep changing and yeah. So this let us wind up to any tips for your juniors something important that you think we all should know about?
Well, let me start by saying that I am in no position to give tips to anyone. Like, I have not done anything great as like that you should follow me. But from my own experiences, I can share some things that I've learned, which would have been helpful to me if I knew earlier, for example. So I'd start by saying maybe, so don't be afraid to try new things, right? Or like, and challenge your preconceived notions in your head. For example, you will never, otherwise you will never grow. And you should always try to get out of a comfort zone and explore. Right. So for
Mm,
example, I would never have found cosmochemistry if I was not exploring around that lab. And even if
mm,
I found the door, I'd not have if I didn't talk to the PhD student or the scientist. Maybe I don't know where I would be right now. And the other thing is that we all have a self definition of ourselves. Like we always define ourselves some way based on our own experiences in childhood, etc. So, like since childhood, I was always interested in being a scientist. So I defined myself, yeah, I'll be working in research and be a scientist, for example. So I'm working in research right now. But for example, now I have, so that was a narrow definition. I'm trying to broaden the definition into being a problem solver instead of being a scientist, right? So I'm trying
mm,
to see if I can run a business, for example, the UPublish idea that I have, or something else later on. I don't know. So basically, don't restrict yourself just because you define yourself as some way and a certain way. For example, you do not need to stick to that definition itself. You can always change the definition or broaden the definition. So your definition could be based on an educational degree or work experience. For example, I was applying to internships the first time. I thought that only I can apply to micropathology internships because that's the only experience I had. But
mm.
at the stage of when you're a student, it doesn't really matter because that's the time when you're learning. So you can apply to anything and gain new experience, right? So the human mind is surprisingly agile and like adaptive. So you can always learn and adapt to anything new. What else? I think another thing to think about early on is like your definition of success and what makes you happy, for example, and define your goals and vision, which can be rudimentary in the beginning, but then you can refine it over time as you learn more. Like, for example, you need to define like what is your goal or idea of success. Like, is making as much money as possible, is that your idea of success? In that case, for example, even if you do not like computer science, you can go to computer science and try to get a job at one of the biggest corporations in the world right now, and just to make money, right? Even if you don't enjoy it. But if your vision of success is, for example, spending more time with your family and like work-life balance, so in that case, you'd be happy with some other jobs which have less demand on your time.
Mm,
Or you can have like, for example, your success vision of success could be like you just want to do any job just to pay your bills, but you want more time to travel or volunteer or some other work or paint or whatever, right? So if you know that, then you you can uh, understand what you want to do instead of trying to compare yourself with others that you know.
mm.
You can be happy that you know what your success is defined as and you have been successful in that. So I think that's a good thing to know in your mind.
That was a great advice. And yeah, like we usually compare, especially college students, we usually compare ourselves with others, and there's a lot of
That's
peer
right.
pressure.
Yeah, I have seen that all the time. Like even during placements, then for example, everyone is comparing their packages with everyone else. So that makes no sense because everyone is leading a different life
Yeah,
and they have different goals and needs.
yeah, that's that was an important advice. And so yes, this is it. Let's wind it up here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and yeah, happy Diwali. How was your Diwali? I forgot to ask you.
Yeah, it was fun. I played some soccer with my friends and
Oh,
my housemates basically, and then we ordered some food from outside and then watched a movie.
oh, that's
How was yours?
yeah. I watched a movie alone, and it was a very lonely Diwali. Like
Wait, aren't you with the family?
yeah. I did puja with my parents. I
Okay.
I started making a rangoli, and then I was frustrated. It was not getting complete. and then and then it was just that. And then I watched a movie alone. My parents slept, and then it was a very lonely Diwali. And I had that assignment, so I worked on
Oh
that
yeah.
assignment. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Good luck with the rest of your bachelor's degree at Roorkee and the
Thank you.
podcast, all the rest of the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.